Why? Sorry, that's not a question.
Hey guys, I'm back with the long-awaited sequel to my first computer science revision video. Today, in Spicy Does Computing, we're doing mathematical expressions and validation tests. Right, let's go on with mathematical expressions. In the Computer Science GCSE Paper 2, you will find often one, maybe two questions that will involve you needing to write a mathematical expression. This generally ranges from a function inside a program which you'll need to express mathematically. So, as you can see here, I've got an example from the Paper 2 mock we did a little while ago. This question gives us the case of Sparky Autos, a family-run business based on a farm. They run small electric cars around a racetrack on the farm. This whole box here is context. That question isn't a mathematical expression. This one, however, is. So, we're told that cars at Sparky Autos are serviced regularly to check they're safe and reliable. Each car takes at least 30 minutes to service. Older cars take longer to service. 10 minutes is added for each full year of the car's age. So, the year of purchase is known. Construct a general expression showing the time needed to service any car. So what we've got here is already quite close to what we'll need, but we don't know the age of the car. We know the year it was purchased and the current year. So we're going to have to find that out as well and put it into a general expression. So, because you need to find out the time needed to service any car, you need to think of a name for the expression you're finding. I'm going to use service time, but it doesn't really matter. So, every car will take at least 30 minutes to service. So that bit, simple, put that in. So, 10 minutes times the car's age. But, how do we get the age of the car? Well, you're going to have to do current year minus the year of purchase. Put those in brackets. So, 30 minutes for each car plus 10 minutes times the current year minus year of purchase, which should give us the car's age. 30 minutes plus 10 times the car's age. And that is the general expression we've been asked to construct. The purpose of these general expressions is to make something that any values could be plugged into, and it would work for what we need in this function. So, say the car was 15 years old. The current year, 2018. Year of purchase would, in this case, probably be given as 2003. Obviously, 2018 minus 2003 will give you 15. So, any values you're given for the year of purchase can then be taken off 30 plus 150 from this section, 180 minutes to service. So from this you can gain the time it will take to service any cart in the Sparky Autos farm. To summarise, mathematical, or as we're told in here, general expressions are quite simple. You just express a process mathematically. Mathematical expressions are all about picking out key bits of information from a question and representing them in a mathematical expression. So, let's say you're given another question saying that all computers in a school needed to be updated. Each computer will take a minimum of 20 minutes to update. However, a new computer suite has been installed. Computers in here can update only in 10 minutes. So, there are a couple ways to represent this. If you're told the variable that's linked to each computer, if it's a new computer, it will have a 1. If it's an old computer, it will have a 0. Say this is stored in the variable n. So, 20 minutes is guaranteed for all computers, apart from the new ones. So you could do this as 20 minutes minus 1 times 10 minutes. Sorry, not 1, n. Because then, if n is 1 for a new computer, 1 times 10 is 10, it will minus 10 minutes. However, if it's 0, it will minus 0, which leaves you at 20. That would be one way to do the expression. If you can find any other ways to represent this, please hit me up in the comments. But the purpose of this was just to show that mathematical expressions are just taking key bits of information and putting them into an expression, hence the name. Let's move on to validation tests. Validation test questions will also appear in the GCSE Computer Science Paper 2. However, these are quite different from mathematical expression questions. So, they could look a little something like this, in where you have a large chunk of code, and then you will be told to complete validation for certain items in that code. This generally tells you that there will be some functional process in the chunk of code in which you'll have to give validation. So, in this question, we're told to do validation tests on this chunk of code. We're given a table and we're told to construct 2 validation tests, and for each test give a piece of invalid test data. It's important that you read the question carefully, unlike what I did, and follow accordingly. So if it says invalid test data, make sure you put something that will come up negative on the validation test. The point of validation tests are to make sure that the code works as it should. So you need to make sure generally, if you're doing this in a program, that validation tests work if they're done trying to fail and trying to succeed. So, for example, one of the tests you might want to complete on a program is if you have a certain area where you need to do a calculation. You need to make sure that the calculation returns like a correct value. So, one value must be higher than the other if you're doing a subtraction, and you need to get a positive number. So for the validation test for this question, I've done something like that. But for the test data, because it also needs to do invalid, I've put in one where you're subtracting a bigger number off a smaller number, which would obviously give a negative value, which in some cases is not what you need. An example of validation tests could be if you're given a problem like this. You have a program which requires the input from a user of the times it took someone to run laps around a track, or something similar. So, if you're gaining the input from that in time, obviously, time will have to be positive. So, a validation test for that would be making sure that time is more than 0. Because obviously you can't run a lap in 0 seconds or a negative seconds. So invalid test data, as the question I've been given called for, would be inputting a value of time as minus 3.56. And then hopefully the program will be able to tell you that that is invalid data, please enter something different. Validation test questions are all about identifying the logic in programs that you're given and being able to test that to make sure that the program would actually work properly. If you're still confused with any of the topics we've gone over today, you can look through the practice mock you've done on the link I've attached below. Obviously you have to scroll down to the paper 2 section and look for question 1b and 6d for mathematical expressions and validations test respectively. I hope this video has been able to help some of you. This is Molecular Gaming, signing off.